Professor Kethavar's 6 eyes gleamed with academic fervor as she activated the holographic display at the center of the lecture hall. The assembled students, a mixture of Altarians, Zenthans, and Corellian youth, settled into their bioformed seats, their various appendages folding neatly as they prepared for another session of galactic xenobiology. Today, my dear pupils, we explore one of the most fascinating yet terrifying classifications in our database, Kethavar announced, her chitinous hands dancing over the control interface. Deathworld predators. The hologram flickered to life, displaying a three-dimensional model of a creature that made several students recoil instinctively. It stood upright on 2 powerful limbs, its torso broad and muscular, with 2 additional appendages ending in what appeared to be primitive grasping tools. Most unsettling were the forward-facing optical sensors, a clear sign of a pursuit predator. Behold the Terran human, Kethavar continued, zooming in on various anatomical features. Perhaps the most successful apex predator to emerge from the notorious Class X Deathworld known as Earth. In the back row, Marcus Chen shifted slightly in his specially modified seat, careful to keep his expression neutral. As the only human exchange student at Kepler Station University, he'd grown accustomed to being the subject of curious stares and whispered conversations. But this was the first time he'd sat through a formal academic discussion of his own species. Note the positioning of the ocular organs, Kethavar lectured, manipulating the hologram to highlight the human's face. Unlike prey species, which typically possess wide-set eyes for maximum environmental awareness, the Terran human's eyes face forward. This binocular vision allows for precise depth perception, essential for tracking and eliminating targets. A Zenthran student raised one of her forearms. Professor, surely these creatures cannot be as dangerous as the database suggests. They appear rather fragile. Kethavar's mandibles clicked in what Marcus had learned was the Altarian equivalent of a knowing smile. Ah, young Silara, that is precisely what makes them so formidable. Tell me, what is the maximum sustained pursuit distance of a Corellian hunter? Approximately 2 kilometers, Professor, replied a scaled student near the front. And an Altarian? Perhaps 500 meters in optimal conditions. Excellent. Now observe. The hologram shifted to display a human figure in motion. The Terran human can maintain pursuit for over 40 kilometers without stopping. Their homeworld's gravity is nearly double galactic standard. Their atmosphere contains a corrosive gas they call oxygen, and the temperature variations would kill most sentient species within hours. Marcus remembered his first week on the HFY station, when the environmental controls in his quarters had malfunctioned. The temperature had dropped to what the other students considered lethal, a balmy 15 degrees Celsius. He'd slept comfortably while emergency crews worked through the night to save his life. But Professor, interjected a young Altarian, surely their primitive tool use limits their effectiveness. I see no evidence of plasma weaponry or neural disruptors. Another misconception, Kethavar replied, clearly enjoying herself. These creatures evolved to use projectile weapons, hurling sharpened sticks with deadly accuracy. But more remarkably, they learned to cook their food with controlled fire. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. Fire was universally feared among galactic species, a chaotic, destructive force that most civilizations went to great lengths to avoid. They deliberately create combustion? Whispered Silara. Not only create it, Kethavar confirmed, but they gather around it for social bonding. They find it comforting. Marcus thought of the fireplace in his childhood home, the family dinners, roasting marshmallows during camping trips. He'd never considered how utterly alien such concepts might seem to species that had evolved in more stable environments. The professor continued her lecture, detailing humanity's peculiar traits, their ability to consume ethanol as a recreational toxin, their tendency to adopt and care for the young of other species, their inexplicable urge to explore dangerous environments, simply for the challenge. Perhaps most disturbing, Kethavar noted, is their pack-hunting behavior. Humans demonstrate unprecedented cooperation in pursuit of common goals. They have been observed sacrificing individual survival for the benefit of complete strangers. HFY, behavior so alien that our xenopsychologists have yet to develop adequate models to explain it. A Corellian student's crest flared nervously. Have there been any confirmed sightings in civilized space? Fortunately, no, Cathvar replied. Their homeworld remains under strict quarantine. The Galactic Council has classified any contact with Terran humans as a Class Alpha threat. The risk of contamination, either biological or ideological, is simply too great. Marcus bit back a smile. If only they knew about the thriving human colonies on 17 different worlds, the human-staffed freighter crews that kept half the galaxy's trade routes operational, or the human diplomatic corps that had quietly prevented 3 interstellar wars in the past decade. Now then, the professor concluded, for your next assignment, I want each of you to select a Deathworld species and prepare a presentation on their adaptive mechanisms. Remember, these are purely theoretical exercises. The likelihood of encountering such creatures in real life is essentially zero. As the class filed out, chattering excitedly about their assignment, Marcus gathered his things slowly. A few students glanced his way, probably wondering why the fragile exchange student seemed so calm after such a frightening lecture. Fascinating subject, wasn't it? Came a voice beside him. Marcus turned to find Silara, the Zenthran student who'd asked about human fragility. Her 4 eyes studied him with curiosity. Very educational, Marcus agreed carefully. I've always wondered, she continued, what it would be like to meet one of these Deathworld predators. Do you think they're really as terrifying as Professor Cathvar described? Marcus considered the question seriously. He thought about his grandmother who'd survived cancer twice and still volunteered at the animal shelter every weekend. He thought about his sister, who'd dropped out of medical school to spend 2 years building wells in refugee camps. He thought about Captain Sarah Martinez, who'd turned down a promotion to remain with her crew because, as she'd put it, family doesn't abandon family. I think, Marcus said finally, they're probably much more dangerous than she described, but not in the way most people would expect. Silara's eyes widened slightly, and she hurried after her classmates. Marcus smiled to himself as he headed for his next class, Advanced Stellar Engineering, where he'd continue to maintain his carefully crafted image as just another promising student from a perfectly ordinary, non-Deathworld civilization. After all, the galaxy wasn't quite ready for the truth about humans yet, but someday it would be.